and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing fine. A little bit annoyed that seeing as unfortunately that the Eagles won the NFC Championship game I'm in. I mean, it's not a pleasant feeling going into work, having to hear that coworker every time during football season, having to hear him sing "Fly Eagles Fly" was not.
Yeah, it's definitely annoying, especially if you're a Giants fan. Any New Yorker worth his weight definitely does not want to hear Philadelphia enjoying themselves at all, right?
That Empire State Building thing did
Oh my God.
I seen the Empire State Building in Eagles colors. It didn't quite sit well with me seeing that.
Yeah, that was terrible. We'll get into that in a little bit, but before we really get started, Dan, I do want to just say that we were scheduled to have the great Mike Bichetti on tonight. And unfortunately, right before we went live, Mike contacted me and said that he couldn't make it because he has some sort of family emergency. And we here at Best Seat in the House just want to wish Mike the best, and we just hope that everything's okay with him and his family. And we look forward to having him on at some point in the future, right, Dan?
Yep, same thing. I wish Mike everything well with Mike and his family. Hopefully everything sorts out okay. It's always tough news to hear when something like that. When I hear something like that, when I get text from a friend and family saying that there's a family emergency, does make I hope the best. I hope it's not the worst.
Exactly. It makes you, when you hear something like that from a friend, it just makes you kind of think about your family and, people that are close to you and everything. So just really hope that everything works out for Mike and his family. I hope it's, nothing drastic and that everything comes out good in the end. And hey, we could always get him on at another time. Not a problem at all. So best wishes to the great Mike Bichetti, and we look forward to having you on at some point in the near future. But Dan, we started talking about the conference championship games this past Sunday, and obviously, as you alluded to, that that NFC championship game was not not too close, as the Eagles ended up blowing them out. What was the final? 31-7, I believe. It was not a close game. Unfortunately, Brock Purdy got hurt. A lot of people have been talking about how, because Brock Purdy and then Josh Johnson, the backup quarterback, both got hurt in this game. It really, a lot of people were saying that the Eagles were being dirty and late hits and this and that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. What did you think, Dan? Did you think that there was an element of dirtiness going on in this game?
I'm not really sure there was an element of dirtiness, but yeah, I got some friends that are Niners fans, and man, that must have been. I can only imagine what it must have been like for some of my friends that are Niners fans, how they felt that they're watching that one.
Yeah, it's true. It's like a punch to the gut when you get all the way to the championship game and you have the rug pulled out from underneath you and you go home. As a Jet fan, I've seen it, quite a few times in my life, 0-3 in championship games.
But what's worse, seeing your team come close to winning a game like that, or losing in a blowout? Because both are horrible.
Oh, no doubt about it. If I had to pick, I would probably say that I'd rather lose a close game just from a Jets fan perspective, because I'm so used to getting blown out and not, being able to watch the game after the first quarter for a lot of these games where the Jets just, kind of go out. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's maybe it took the sting away a little bit because it was over so early. But yeah, the Eagles just look like a machine right now. But one thing that has become a talking point over the last couple of days is how easy the Eagles' road to the Super Bowl has been, where they're talking about how they beat the Giants 38-7. They beat the Niners in the championship game 31-7. So the point differential through their two playoff games has been 69-14. They're plus 55. So, people want to act like the two teams they beat were terrible. And I couldn't disagree more. I feel like that is complete disrespect to the Giants, who, while the Giants might not have been the most talented team, as we've talked about, the Giants were a good team. And there were a lot of people in this city that thought the Giants could beat them. Now, ultimately, it didn't work out, but you can't take anything away from the Giants. Daniel Jones isn't a pushover. Saquon Barkley is one of the top running backs in the game, and they shut him down. They were able to control, so I don't buy this line that the Eagles had an easy run. Did both games break out in their favor? Yeah, but I don't think it's because of the teams they faced. I think it's because they're that damn good. What do you think, Dan? Do you think that the Giants and the Niners were like patsies for the Eagles?
I think they earned that win rightfully. They earned those wins. Those were legit tough competition, and somehow they pulled it off. As much as I can't stand the Eagles, but also, by the way, some of you people in Philadelphia, no, I did not bash the Murmurs parade. Much as I make fun of you guys, I do have some respect for you guys. I do got a little respect for you guys. All right, you got because I do got some good friends. I do know some good people in Philly, so
Exactly.
I do. What's that? I do like Jim's cheesesteaks.
Hey, especially Philadelphia and cheesesteaks go together, like nothing else.
Yeah, definitely got to try Jim's in South Street. Once they reopened, because if you recall, they had a little kitchen fire sometime last summer. I heard.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so I heard they're reopening by the end of 2023. They're somewhere around there. Which, by the way, that happens to be Gary Cohen's favorite cheesesteak place in Philly.
Is it really?
Yeah. I've seen Gary Cohen mention Jim's before.
Very cool. Very cool. Gary Cohen. Love that guy. Soon to be Mets Hall of Famer, Gary Cohen.
Exactly. And by the way, SNY, if you have any bones in your body left, unfortunately the Wilpons still own SNY, so we're not done with the Wilpon garbage. They still own SNY. Resign Keith.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that too. We will definitely get into that at the end of the show, because that Keith Hernandez thing with the Wilpons and SNY is bothering me too. So yeah, that's we definitely Best Seat in the House podcast. We give a big shout out to Keith Hernandez. Come on, Wilpons, pay the man.
Yep, exactly. But also, but yeah, that also, of course, that game, and like I do have to say that Empire State Building being lit up in Eagles colors did not sit well with me, especially the fact that I could a few feet from my house, there's some areas that I could see the Empire State Building. So
Yeah, that was a bad call by whoever runs the Empire State Building or whatever. And the thing is too, if you see the guy that runs the Twitter account now, they're all trying to get this has to be some kind of Super Bowl commercial or some kind of social media thing. They're trying to get attention to the Empire State Building for some reason. And I couldn't be more disinterested in it now.
but yeah, as much as I respect the building, I wasn't really quite excited about the commercial, and I did thought it was funny what the Giants posted on their Twitter account. We're just here for the comments.
I saw that too. And that definitely was funny. But you know what though, and even later that night, the building was lit up in Kansas City Chiefs colors, which we'll talk about the AFC title game in a minute. But yeah, that did not sit well with me either. The only colors that the Empire State Building should ever be lit up in is New York or, metropolitan area teams. That's it. It shouldn't be lit up for the Kansas City Chiefs. It shouldn't be the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to be lighting up buildings in green if the Jets ever win. When the Giants won the Super Bowl against the Patriots, did Philadelphia light up one of their buildings blue? Was the Ben Franklin building lit up blue? No. So what are we lighting the Empire State Building up green for? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. It just really didn't really didn't make sense. Really didn't make sense.
Yeah, and look, hey, we tip our caps to the Eagles who won, and obviously the Chiefs. And man, that Chiefs game, what a game! It was so tight, and you just see the greatness of Patrick Mahomes now, who in the Super Bowl actually will be the first time that Patrick Mahomes has ever had to wear a road jersey in the playoffs, and it comes in the Super Bowl. And it's just by happenstance, really, that they ended up putting them in white. But yeah, this is a guy whose team has hosted every playoff game Patrick Mahomes has ever played in has been at Arrowhead Stadium, aside from the Super Bowl. So that kid is one of the all-time greats already. He's etching his name further and further up on that list. And hey, 23-20. It worked out perfect. You really feel bad for the kid on the Bengals that committed the 15-yard penalty at the end of the game that put the Chiefs in field goal position. But just a hell of a game, right, Dan? I mean, 23-20, Chiefs on the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's I gotta tip my hats to the Chiefs. That was a really close game, and I just have a feeling a Super Bowl it's gonna be a high scoring Super Bowl, and I just have a feeling that the Chiefs are gonna win that game. This Mahomes seems to have a lot of Super Bowl and playoff experience. That I think he has the edge in this one. I think the Chiefs have the edge in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. Actually, it feels to me like it's the Patrick Mahomes redemption tour, because Patrick Mahomes, man, this is a guy, we just talked about all the accolades the guy has. He's won a Super Bowl, he's been to two. Now this is his third. And this is a guy who has, burst on the scene early in his career, had all that success. And I feel like he and the rest of the Chiefs felt disrespected with, last year Burrow coming in and winning the championship game in Kansas City, and really big upset that they were also down 21-10 at halftime. So they came up with a really big second half to win that game last year. And this year, it was 13, it was such a close game, 13-6. Then they tie it up 13-13. It's 20-13. Then it's 20-20. I mean, just a back and forth game. And I think that the little extra motivation from the Bengals and a lot of other people calling Arrowhead Burrowhead helped the Chiefs a little bit. I think it gave them a little bit of extra motivation. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think that's what it's what it did. They paid off and they won.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people forget how good that Chiefs team is. And you know what? I mean, hey, maybe the offense is a little bit less dynamic without, guys like, Tyreek Hill, who's out in Miami now. And, you remember early on in their run, they had another guy, Sammy Watkins, out there. He's not there anymore. So, they got a couple of other guys. Valdez Scantling was making some big plays. He caught that ball while he was falling on his ass in the end zone. That was a big one. And, that was on 4th and 1, by the way, too. And, I really feel like Patrick Mahomes is going to seal the deal and get his second Super Bowl ring. Dan, you feeling that too?
Yeah, I have a feeling too. I just have a feeling in my gut that's going to happen. It's how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, it just kind of has that feeling. I agree. So, hey, we're a great championship Sunday. Well, at least for the AFC side. The NFC side got a little ugly pretty early, but sometimes that happens. And the Super Bowl should be a really, really good one. Two of the best teams in the game, two teams that, have won Super Bowls in recent years, the Eagles in 2018, the Chiefs in 2020. So they have that history. They have great coaching. Let's get it on. And it's going to be the only thing that stinks now too is that now we have to go through this waiting period where there's no football this week, and for us too, there's not even any hockey this week, as the Rangers don't even play again until Monday against Calgary. So it's going to
Yeah,
be a little wait until we get some football again, right?
kind of. There is this weekend. There is a couple of things. It's this one. I'm going to make use of my DVR for this because there's multiple things, sort of sports wise, happening at the same time. You got, of course, the NHL All Star Game, the skills competition. You also got NASCAR sort of has a soft, I guess I could call it soft season opener because they hold this exhibition race in LA next weekend. So they got that set to DVR to record also. So you kind of got they always do this little exhibition race, like usually it's like a week before or 2 weeks before the Daytona 500. So that's happening this week. And
Very
of course, I think like the week after the Super Bowl is when the Daytona 500 happens. So I
cool.
got got that set to the record to watch, and of course the NHL All Star Game. So there are some little things sports wise to look forward to this weekend.
Now, you just mentioned all of that, but you didn't mention the Pro Bowl. Do you have any interest in the Pro Bowl at all?
I have watched the Pro Bowl sometimes, but of all the All Star games, the Pro Bowl doesn't really. I guess maybe because of the timing they do it, because they do it after the season,
Mm-hmm.
like after it's just ended, and I guess maybe also because sometimes it's just really just feels like players just talk about a watered down version of a sport. It would be the
But
Pro.
yeah, and you are right, especially in years past where they have done that. But did you hear that they're doing all these different things this year? Like they're having the actual Pro Bowl itself is going to be a flag football game, and
Yeah,
they have all these other events, like they're going to be at the driving golf balls and stuff and all this other crap. I can't even imagine sitting down and watching 5 seconds of that. I would rather pour bleach in my eyes.
yeah, that's true. It's like I don't know why I've never. It's never been an easy thing. It's never been something that's I've never usually not sold on really watching a Pro Bowl that much. Watch that flag football game because it does kind of seem funny that I think if I'm correct, the Manning brothers are coaching it.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Probably good. I gotta watch that. I gotta give my props up to our goat Eli, guy who guy whose picture I will forever share to Patriots fans.
Hey, if he was my quarterback, man, I'd do the same thing.
Yep, reminding them forever 18-1.
Yep. Hey, you're right about that, man. That's a mark they can't get rid of.
I, I will forever remind them of 18-1.
And for me, you know, the Manning's coaching is even a bigger reason for me not to watch because hey, look, I totally respect the fact that you as a Giants fan love Eli. Totally respect it. If he was my quarterback, I'd do the same. But Eli
Uh,
Manning for me is like, eh. And Peyton Manning, as a Jets fan, I can't take Peyton Manning. Not only did the guy beat us in an AFC championship game in 2009, if he had come out of school of the volunteers in Tennessee a year earlier, he would have been a Jet in 1996, but he's decided to stay in or 97, whatever year it was. But he decided to stay an extra year. And what most people say is because the Jets had the number one pick and he didn't want to come here. He decided to stay the extra year with the Vols and ended up getting drafted by the Colts. So the Jets got screwed out of that one. And the final cherry on top of why I don't like Peyton Manning is, hey, Peyton, thanks a lot for telling Chris Johnson to hire Adam Gase. That's all I have to say about that. So yeah, me and the Mannings aren't exactly on friendly terms at this point.
And that surprised me that Peyton decided to walk out of that time because if I'm correct, around that time the Jets had a coach by the name of Parcells, which I think that someone passed up that they could have played on a team that probably had a good shot to win because most of the teams Parcell coached were very, very respectable teams.
Yeah, no, you're right. And he turned the Jets around, those late 90s Jets. I mean, in 1996, before Parcells got there, they were 1-15 under Rich Kotite. Then in 1997, Parcells gets there that first year, and they went 9-7. The second year, in 98, they went 12-4 and were in the AFC Championship game. So, I mean, could you imagine the difference that team, and how it would have looked and felt if Peyton Manning was their quarterback instead of Vinny Testaverde? No offense to Vinny, who was awesome that season, 12-1 and led them to the championship game. But if they had a younger Peyton Manning, maybe that great streak with Parcells could have lasted longer than 1 year in 98. So
Sadly, plus you can't forget about the other thing about Parcells. He had two great I don't know, I guess proteges that are kind of responsible for some great championship teams. I mean, of course, you have obviously Bill Belichick, know about the Patriots dynasty. Also, Tom Coughlin got with my Giants to two Super Bowls.
true.
He that kind of came out of that branched from that Bill Parcells branch.
True. And as a Jet fan, though, that's just another wound because Bill
Yep.
Parcells handpicked Bill Belichick to be his successor with the Jets, and that lasted for exactly one day before he decided to resign as the HC of the NYJ, as he wrote on the basically napkin that he resigned on and turned into Leon Hess at the time and the old Jet owner. If he was even, it was right around the time of the transition between Hess and Woody Johnson. But so,
And who knows what that would have been like? How kind of makes you wonder how that would have played out had you guys had Bill Belichick on as coach of your team.
yeah, I would have much rather had 20 years of Bill Belichick than 1 year of Al Groh. I'll tell you that much.
Yep. If I'm correct, I think your Jets may have been one of the many teams that passed on a player in the 2000 draft by the name of Tom Brady.
Yeah, yeah, they did. They did. I think every team passed on him until the seventh round.
By the way, that's why I bring up that picture of Eli Manning. As a Giants fan, that I shared. I will jokingly share to every Patriots fan I know because today, Tom Brady said he's retiring today. Just which I'm trying to, which I think you in Vegas you could place bets on how long that's gonna actually stick because I've been through this, but I just have a feeling this one is gonna stick because it just looked like Tom Brady looked like he was a shell of himself here, and the trying not to get a concussion, like you could tell he was kind of get through this season without getting any lingering for the rest of his life injuries. Just really kind of looked like he is retiring, but we all have seen these things. We've all seen how many millions of times Brett Favre has said this.
Very true, very true. And even Aaron Rodgers has teased retiring over the last couple of years. But yeah, Tom Brady announced his retirement today for the second time over the last year. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I find it a little weird that he decided to retire um like the same weekend that 80 for Brady movie's coming out now. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it could be a little bit of a um you know like a publicity stunt and that he could be coming back. It wouldn't surprise me because to be honest, it makes all the sense in the world for him to come back and at least try one more year with the 49ers. Because the 49ers are a set-up team right now. You got, not only do you have Debo, but you got Christian McCaffrey. You have a great top-notch defense, one of the best offensive lines in football, one of the most respected head coaches in football. So you could just plug Brady in and he wouldn't have to be the be-all, end-all. He could just be a capable, serviceable quarterback. Look what they did with Brock Purdy. They got one win away from the championship game. So what do you think about that, Dan? Do you think that's a possibility he comes out and it's all publicity stunt, or do you think it's going to stick?
I think it's going to stick. I just can't see that just by the way he played this year. It just felt like I just don't think that he wants to risk it.
Yeah, hey, that would make total sense.
Yeah.
The guy's 46.
And at the same time, I think if there was any publicity stunt he's going to pull promoting that movie, he would probably do some whole sign a one-day contract with the Patriots to retire a Patriot.
True. But still, I feel like the timing just bothers me. Maybe it's just coincidental, but it seems a little too coincidental if you ask me. But what's that?
It seems a little too coincidental.
The other thing that bothered me about Tom Brady announcing his retirement now is that it kind of reopens another possible destination for Aaron Rodgers, which I still don't think that the 49ers would trade him to an NFC team. Not the 49ers, the Packers would trade Aaron Rodgers to another NFC team. But it just feels like that's not going to be the case. It feels like he's going to be going to an AFC team. It feels like that he's not going to the Packers, right? What do you think, Dan? Right now, he just had that interview with Pat what was his name, McAfee, the other day, the old punter, the old Colts punter, who now does WWE and all the other stuff. He's on ESPN all the time. He's a pretty entertaining guy, Pat McAfee. But he was talking to Aaron Rodgers on their weekly spot, and Rodgers was pretty much saying, "Yeah, I really don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I don't know if that's fully the truth, but what do you think, Dan? Do you think that Rodgers is still like trying to decide, or do you think that it's a given that he's playing next season?"
I think it's a given he's playing next year. It's a matter of where.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that if you had to put your money on it right now, would you bet that it's in Green Bay, or do you think it's going to be somewhere else?
I think it's going to be somewhere else.
Wow. Yeah. I kind of feel the same way, man. I think Aaron Rodgers is one of those type of guys where even though he says that he's not going to take it personally, I feel like Brett Favre took it really, really personally when the Packers wanted to trade him, which is why he made it his life's mission to leave the Jets and go to the Minnesota Vikings just to stick it to the Packers. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers, even though he keeps saying all the right things, that he holds nothing against the Packers and everything, I feel like it would annoy him, but that he's one of those guys too that is very open-minded to a lot of things. So I don't think that it would become like he's dying to get back into the NFC just to stick it to the Packers type thing. I think that if he does move on, he'll be one of those guys that is happy where, as long as he's comfortable where he's going, which is, the Packers would have to make sure that, because no team is going to give up all these assets for Aaron Rodgers and then just have him retire after 1 year. That's not going to happen. It's going to have to be a 2-year commitment if you're going after that guy, right?
Yeah, that's what I feel is going to happen.
Okay, so right now we're talking a couple of teams. So let's just throw the Niners in there now, since Tom Brady, took himself out of that, at least temporarily, today. So we got the 49ers, we got the Las Vegas Raiders, the Tennessee Titans, and the New York Jets. If you had to pick from one of those 4 teams, where do you think Aaron Rodgers is playing next year?
I just have a gut feeling he's probably going to the Jets because they got a young team there that's almost quite there.
Dan, this is why I knew we'd be great partners. No, I'm just kidding. But I agree, man. I agree. It's almost scares me how much sense it makes for Aaron Rodgers to come to the Jets. If he goes to personally, from what I've heard, I don't think that the Raiders have the money to get it done. If you're trading for Aaron Rodgers, you got to write a $60 million check this year, and that's not including any kind of cap hit. It's $60 million upfront to Aaron Rodgers, and then next year it's another 40 or 50 million. So you're going to be paying Aaron Rodgers $100 million, not counting the 45 or so million that you owe him via the cap. So there's a lot of money that's going to go into this. I don't think the Oakland Raiders have that money. I don't think the Tennessee Titans have that money. Now, the Niners might, but I don't think that the Packers are going to want to trade him. Like the Packers are going to at least hope that if they plug in Julian Love next year, they can at least maybe compete a little bit. They're not going to think to themselves they're tearing it down and they're going to go 2-14. Like they're going to at least hope that if Julian Love plays well, maybe they can make the playoffs. So why would you want to trade Aaron Rodgers to a conference rival? And a conference rival, by the way, that's a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl, favorite, right?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I gotta correct you. You actually, I think you forgot the Oakland Raiders. He moved to Las Vegas a couple of years ago.
Did I say Oakland? Yeah, you're right. It's still drilled in my head. It's Oakland. I can't get it out. But yeah, I agree with you, man. And even though, hey, look, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers could have a lot of fun in Las Vegas. So anybody can. But I'm pretty sure that from everything I've heard, Mark Davis didn't even have the money to fire their head coach, Josh McDaniel, this year. So how is he going to, if he can't cover that money, how are you going to have the money to put in escrow to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me from a money perspective. And who knows? I guess maybe they can manipulate a few things here and there. But I really think that that when it comes down to it right now, everything is in the Jets' favor. And the only way that I won't be mad at the Jets is if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get traded. But if Aaron Rodgers does get traded and it's not to the Jets, I, along with a lot of other Jet fans, will not be happy camper. So, hey, we can just leave it at that, right? All right, now we got that football talk out of the way. I do want to move on to a little baseball, man, as we have now officially turned the calendar to February. I can't believe it's already February. This is kind of nuts. As when people are watching this, it'll be Groundhog Day, right, Dan?
February, and the countdown for baseball season begins. And I like to start counting the days when it's 41 days away from opening day.
I like that. I like that. Starting with the little Tommy Terrific, right?
Yeah, which I didn't miss that yet, the 41-day counter, right?
No. I think we're in the 50s right now, high 50s.
All right, when it gets 41, I start counting down. I use pictures of Mets players past and present if I could find if I could figure out maybe a player that's maybe the greatest link to that in Mets history, linked to that specific number. And sometimes it's a little hard to decide because sometimes you got cases where there's multiple players linked to that number that sometimes makes the decision hard. Like there was one I think last year kind of made 20 hard because you had Howard Johnson who had some great numbers with the Mets and in 1991 did lead the NL in home runs that year. And he was one of the few times that you had a two players on the same team back in 1987 who both were members of the 30-30 club on the same team. Two 30-30 club member through 30 seasons on the same team. You had with him and Daryl Strawberry that year, and then
Very
you also
true.
had Pete Alonso, who he broke the rookie record for home runs and holds the Mets all time team record for single season home runs. So that's why that time when it was 20 days, I kind of went with Pete Alonso because he holds a team record.
That's true. That's true. It definitely makes sense. Even though Hojo now officially, along with Gary Cohen, like we mentioned earlier, will be going into the Mets Hall of Fame this year.
This
And actually, while I'm thinking about this, before we move on, because I did want to mention one little thing, but I actually saw the story today that came out by Andrew Marchand about Howie Rose and how, if you remember, he ended up missing the end of the season because he had some kind of medical issue that they really didn't allude to. And apparently, what Howie had was bladder cancer.
yeah,
And
that was shocking. But
yeah, and thank God Howie got the surgery, and he's on the road to recovery now. But boy, I was shocked when I saw that. And I was so happy he was doing better.
yeah, I'm happy that he made it through that. But that shocked me that to learn that this is what it was.
Yeah,
But
man, bladder
I'm happy.
cancer is no joke, too.
Yeah, it's no joke, and I'm happy that Howie's made it through that, and he's been soldiering through after going through that. And then now of course he doesn't do many road games. I think like mostly I think he does like the not really many of the road games outside East Coast,
Yeah, they
but he
said that his number of games was bumped down from he used to do literally every single game 162, but now he's doing about 125 games, which hey, Howie is starting to get a little bit older, so hey, especially if his health was weakening a little bit over the last year or two, definitely hey, we need Howie fresh for October, right, Dan?
fresh and we want to make sure that he's around so we can hopefully get to call a championship. And if you remember, he was talking about the old timers day, the ceremony on old timers day. And I said, as always, Howie, you do a great job whenever they have you host those ceremonies for a number of retirements or they're honoring a player for something. And I hope one of these days we'll get to see you MC Mets World Series ring ceremony. And he responded to me. He says, "Yeah, I hope I get to do so too."
Yeah, that would be great, man.
Did you get to see that when he responded to my tweet?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't know that he did.
Yeah, he actually responded to that tweet when I said that to him. When I
Very
said
cool.
you get to MC a World Series ring ceremony at Citi Field, and he said, "Yeah, me too."
That's awesome, man. And Howie, that's why Met fans love Gary Cohen and Howie Rose so much because they're one of us. These are guys that grew up rooting for the Mets and grew up. I mean, obviously, me and you were a little bit younger, but these guys grew up listening to Lindsey Nelson and Ralph Kiner and Bob Murphy, and me and you, the next generation of Met fans, grew up listening to them. So I mean, I remember Gary Cohen and Bob Murphy on the in the radio booth, and I remember seeing Howie Rose and if you remember Fran Haley in the old sports channel, and all that stuff. So
Well, you would see Howie. I mean, you would see Gary Cohen in the booth with Bob Murphy in the
yeah,
radio booth. Uh, I think on and off, you kind of saw like Howie Rose on the in a broadcast booth, and I think for a while he started off. I think he started his first big thing with the Mets. He was doing a radio pregame.
yeah, I think it was Mets Extra, I believe.
Yep, exactly. He was hosting. He was the guy who did all their pregame and some of the pregame interviews.
Yeah, and another great announcer too. We want to do tip our cap as we're talking about announcers here right now. Anyway, let's give a fond farewell to the great Wayne Randazzo as he now moves on to Anaheim or Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim as he's
Yeah,
going to be the Angels' new play-by-play guy.
Anaheim Angels. I think I heard even Los Angeles didn't really want that.
Los Angeles doesn't want it. Believe me.
But I heard also, speaking of Met announcers, and I said back in the day about when I said about Gary Cohen, I think it's like the 1988, the 1989 Mets yearbook. When it was old Mets yearbook, I have every one in my collection from every Mets yearbook and from team his and their from their entire history from their first season all the way up to the most recent year. But one of them, there's a picture of Gary Cohen with hair. As weird as that is.
Yeah, that definitely is a something we haven't seen in a long time. I don't even remember seeing Gary Cohen with hair ever.
Yeah, I got to bring that one out to tweet a picture of this because I believe if my memory's correct, it's in the 1988 Mets yearbook.
Oh, okay, okay. Now that I think about it, actually, I do remember seeing one picture of Gary Cohen with hair, but it was when he was like a teenager, or he was like a young kid, and he had like longer hair, but
Yeah, yeah,
definitely not as a Met.
yeah. I'm not talking about that. I think he had more of a shorter hair, believe me. But
Yeah,
of course, we all know about that picture, that weird. I guess I could say like 70s ish, 60s ish hair,
yeah, like
but
a hippie.
more like I guess I don't know how to describe the hair, but I just remember in this picture he did have he we had this picture. I might have to bring up the 88 Mets yearbook to tweet a picture of this, or maybe even Google, or maybe find a picture on Google so you could. This way, I don't have to go through the trouble of getting out that yearbook to show you. But that, further, I gotta send you this photo because I clearly and I'm positive it was from the 1988 Mets yearbook. If my memory is correct. I might be wrong if I look through all these Mets yearbook. Might have been the following year, but I'm positive it was I'm almost positive that I'm going to be correct. That
Definitely.
it's the 1988 Mets yearbook. That picture.
When you find that too, tweet that out, and I'll retweet that because you're right. I guarantee that you're right. That sounds familiar what you're talking about. So I think you're definitely right about that. Uh, being 1988, but also Dan, to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. I just actually double checked, and we are 57 days away from opening day from today. Now, let me ask you a
So
question. If you were going to choose, what Met would you choose for 57?
I would have to. This one would be very easy. I mean, Johan Santana. I mean, the guy had a great season. Of course, the last year at Shea Stadium. I mean,
Yeah.
especially that game that game before the last game of the season, with he pitched. It's such a big spot. I remember.
No
I
doubt
would
about it, against Miami on that final Saturday of the year.
back to back days. That game and and what turned out to be the last home game at Shea Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But in a tight playoff race, he pitched a shutout, a complete game.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
And
one of the best games he threw as a Met.
of course, I gotta mention another one which, by the way, I attended also, the no hitter.
The no hitter. There we go. Now, you know what? Actually, I did also want to mention too. To Well, actually, before I bring that up, I do want to say one other thing. A dark horse for number 57 that a lot of people forget in Mets history is a guy who hit for the cycle in, I want to say 2003, maybe 2004, but I think 2003 is what I'm going to go with.
Went
Eric Valent. There we go, Dan.
2004 on the road in Montreal.
In Montreal.
Talk about how dated that it was. It was back when the Montreal Expos still existed. It was on the road in Montreal that it happened.
There we go, Dan. This is why you are my partner on Best Seat in the House podcast, because I'm telling you right now, nobody else knew that.
Also, I do got to say about one more thing about the fact about Johan Santana. The very last bobblehead giveaway at a game at Shea Stadium, the last time they did one of those promotional bobbleheads, It was a Johan Santana bobblehead.
Wow, very cool.
Have that item.
Now,
The last bobble way at Chase Stadium.
now you mentioned too that you were at Johan's no hitter. Unfortunately, I wasn't there that night, but you know, um, it's funny too because I would our guest that was supposed to be on tonight, Mike Bichetti. I was listening to the Shuley has a show on his network called The Miserable Men Show, where it's Shuley and it's Mike Morse and Bob Levy and a couple of the guys, and they'll have guests and Earl Skakel, and they on Monday night they had Mike Bichetti, and it was a great show. If you have a chance, subscribe to Shuley's stuff because it's great.
I actually watched that one, and I didn't get to watch that one yet. I didn't watch Monday's show yet. I'm like one show behind. I'm one
Well,
show behind.
it's funny because in that show, and I was going to bring it up to Mike tonight, but unfortunately we didn't get the chance. He actually mentioned that Mike Bichetti said he'd only been to one game at Yankee Stadium his entire life, and the game that he went to was July 4th, 1983, against the Boston Red Sox at Yankee Stadium, where Dave Righetti threw the no hitter against the Red Sox. Isn't that's pretty cool? That I mean, you go to one game in Yankee Stadium, and it's one of the most famous regular season games in Yankee Stadium history.
Yeah, talk about crazy. That is that.
Right?
Think I think if I'm think if my memory correct, my mom mentioned that my dad went to that game. It was 19.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was still. I think my mom recalled. I think I recall my mom telling me that my dad went to that game.
Wow. Who would have thought that Mike Bichetti and your dad were in Yankee Stadium on the same day that Dave Righetti threw a no hitter against the Sox? Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Yeah, so we definitely when we get Mike on, we definitely have to bring that up because I think Mike will get a kick out of that too. But yeah, so just keep moving on here, man. I mean, we're getting real close now to spring training as the Mets open, I believe, on February 15th. And I don't know if you saw this, Dan, but the other day they released the times of all the games this year because up until the other day, most of them had said TBD, and they were trying to figure out what the timings would be of the games.
Yeah, I know some Sunday games are 1:30 or so ish.
Yeah, they've been doing the 1:30, 1:40 games on Sunday, which I mean, I don't mind that. I think 1 o'clock on Sunday is perfect, but okay, 1:30, 1:40 is not too bad either. But the thing that did catch my eye is that at least in the first half of the season, I don't know why they really don't want to do this later in the year. I guess maybe because the games mean more and they want to have them prime time or something like that. I don't know. But early in the year, the Mets actually have more 640 or 645 starts than they do 710 starts this year, which, for the norm for the last 25 years, if not more, the 90% of the Mets weekday games at least have been 7 or 710 starts, unless it was on getaway day where they'd have an afternoon game or something like that. But I like these earlier games though, Dan. How do you feel about it?
I kind of like. It's going to be a little bit weird getting used to that, but I don't mind that a little bit. A little bit. I guess the games ended a little bit earlier hour. It's
Yeah,
probably
especially for the kids watching and everything.
yes. It might be like a half hour early. I arrive home when I go to those games.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's and it's definitely good, especially over the summer and in the spring where the sun's out later and the days longer.
and it's probably also in the first half. Also probably because early season. I guess maybe the weather. I guess a little bit maybe factors into that because it gets a little later, it gets a little chilly or early season. I
That's a
mean,
good
in
point.
New York, I mean, it's hoodie weather early in the season. The best way to describe it.
Yeah, April, May, you're definitely bundling up going to City Field.
Yep, exactly. And I hope I can be bundling up in October for for a trip to City Field. I hope I could be doing that.
You got that right, man. That's one thing I'm always hoping for, because if obviously as a Met fan, you want them to make the playoffs, but what I always pay attention to too is if the Mets are still playing on or after my birthday. I know it's been a good year because my birthday is on October 15th. So if the Mets are still playing, that means good things are happening, right?
And hopefully we're on a road to the Canyon of Heroes
Hell
finally.
yeah, man. Hell yeah. And the last time the Mets played on my birthday was game 5, actually, against the Dodgers in 2015. So, see, good things do happen when they play on my birthday.
Yep, exactly. How could I forget that day, the postseason? I mean, Daniel Murphy with that monster postseason.
Oh, man. And Jacob DeGrom throwing that great game.
Yeah, exactly. That was just a great team. I was so close. Really felt like we could have won that World Series to this day. I mean, and I still remember being at the only game of that World Series we won. I mean, Game 3 of the World Series.
Yeah, man. You know,
I
out
I
of
was
all, yeah, I'm sorry, continue.
and surprisingly, even though it was very windy that day, I kind of felt like the section I was sitting in. I was like at section one, I think 141. I was sitting at City Field that day, sitting there with Seven Line Army that day. It was one of the less windy areas of the ballpark, surprisingly, that day.
Oh, wow, you got a good spot.
Right there in the outfield, I got some good pictures. I think got some pictures of some. I even got some pictures of some players warming up. Like there's some. I got some shots of Syndergaard warming up, and I think I got a shot of Lucas Duda who was warming up. I also got that great shot I took during the national anthem. I just snapped this quick pic during the national anthem, that with the giant American flag on the field.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get that shot because that's always such a beautiful. It's just such a beautiful shot always when you see that giant American flag on the field.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. And actually, that World Series kills me because when you really think about it, of the teams that me and you root for, the most of the same teams aside from the Jets and the Giants. Um, but of the teams that we have seen and that we root for that have gone to their championship, whether it be the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals, the World Series, whatever it may be, I think that 2015 World Series leaves the most bitter taste in my mouth because if you really break it down, you know, the Mets in 2000, I convinced myself they were going to beat the Yankees. They weren't going to beat the Yankees. The Yankees were already the two-time defending world champions. They were that Yankee team was a generational team. That was a dynasty team. So even though the Mets put up a good fight and it was all the games were close, the Yankees were going to win that World Series one way or another. And I feel the same way about the Knicks. In 94 it was really close to the Rockets, really, really close, but we couldn't get it done. 99 they lost to the Spurs, and that was the beginning of a dynasty team. How do you feel, Dan? Where does and one more thing, the 2014 Rangers who lost to the Kings in the Stanley Cup, that was another team that's won multiple championships, and that Kings team was a hell of a team. So where do you think that 2015 Mets loss to the Royals ranks among the teams I just named?
That was one of the toughest losses to experience. That one I felt was tough. Also, 2014, the Rangers. I just felt that series just felt winnable. Every one of those games just felt winnable, and I just felt like those two overtime losses, games 1 and 2, just drained us. The rest of the season, we had to win those because I knew the next game was going to be. They were going to be drained by that.
Game 3 at the Garden that they lost that game was one of the worst games I've ever seen. That was like torture watching that game because the Rangers just had no life. I think you're right that the overtime losses just did, especially after that long playoff run. I think the overtime losses just did them in. You're right, but like when you look at that Kings team though, in retrospect, you could go down that list. Jonathan Quick, you could make the case is a Hall of Famer. Marion Gabrick, who unfortunately wasn't on our team anymore at that point, goes to them. he was, on fire, he's probably a borderline Hall of Famer. You could go down the list and see all the guys on that team. Drew Doughty, Anze Kopitar, all these guys. That was a hell of a team. Hell of a team. And even though the Rangers lost, you can look at that team and be like, that's a great team. The Spurs teams that we were talking about that beat the Knicks. Okay, you have Tim Duncan, the Admiral. You can't complain about losing that series. And even in '94, Hakeem Olajuwon, come on, let's give me a break. One of the greatest of all time. But when you look at that 15 World Series with the Mets and the Royals, go down that list. The Mets should have beat them. The Mets should have beat them. Their pitching was better, their hitting was better, but they just couldn't get it done.
That one we couldn't get done. That loss still stings to this day. That was like, and the crazy part at a Compound Media broadcast, I think it was the Eastside Dave show. I met a fan who was very nice. All right, I forget his Twitter handle. He was a very nice guy, but it still kind of hit home when the fact I think if I think I'm correct, he had a 2015 World Champions tattoo. That kind of thing. A little.
Oh no, that's bad. Yeah, but unfortunately, hopefully he could get that tattoo changed to a 2023 World Series championship tattoo.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a Royals fan at a Compound Media broadcast.
Oh God, okay, that's even worse.
That's what I meant.
Well, either way, that Royals fan should get that tattoo turned into a 2023 Mets tattoo. But what's that, Dan?
I don't know if I want to get a tattoo, but if I did get a tattoo, you would put it, I would, if I was going to leave a spot for a year, I would leave a thing blank. At the whatever year World Champions until it's actually happened.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, Dan. I'm making a promise on the show right now. If the Mets win the World Series with Justin Verlander, I don't have any tattoos. I always wanted to get one, just never ended up happening. If the Mets win the World Series and Justin Verlander pitches the clinching game and the Mets win, I will get Verlander 35 tattooed on my back. How about that, Dan?
All right. No problem. All right. Definitely see that one.
And there's no way this audio or video is going to come back to haunt me.
If it does happen, I'll be glad to make sure to go with you to the tattoo place to document the whole thing happening.
That would be great. We'd have to get it done in Philly too, just to rub it into them.
That'd be hilarious. I'm sure. Hopefully, we could find an artist in Philly that would be willing to do that. Funny to do that in Philly.
Oh yeah, just to rub it into them.
Yeah, get a tattoo and by then, hopefully, Jim's Cheesesteaks will return South Street, and we'll be able to get a cheesesteak from Jim's.
Exactly. And maybe while we're at it, if the Mets beat the Phillies in that postseason, then in addition to that, I'll get also on my back. You know that picture that you always retweet when the Mets beat the Phillies of Mr. Met choking the Philly fanatic?
That one of my favorite memes.
I'll get that on my back too.
as one of my favorite memes, especially the fact that I have to respect the film, but there was one time he dumped popcorn on me when I saw the Mets on the road there, and of course my sister didn't realize it was a gag. She quite didn't understand it. She was in elementary school when I took her on that away game trip. She didn't quite understand it was a gag, but I had to explain to her that yeah, he does that. He didn't quite know what the heck was going on when he dumped a giant thing of popcorn. I said to my sister, I said, Shannon, I'm sorry you didn't understand what that was a little silly gag he does when he jumped a giant thing of popcorn on your big brother Daniel. But that's it. But it's what he sometimes does to visiting fans. Sometimes I have to explain to her.
Exactly. Any Met fan that's gone in there, I've gotten it too. They came
Oh,
over and they've done. I mean, he didn't dump popcorn on me, but he gave me crap. They were sitting behind me. He was doing the bunny ears behind my head and all that kind of fun stuff. So, the Philly fanatic, he's gonna do that. You just gotta take it in stride.
yep, yep, that's true. That's not the worst thing that could happen if you're in Philly.
And it's always a little bit easier when the Mets are kicking the Phillies' ass, right?
Exactly. Hopefully it'll work out with that because I'm almost it's 95% sure that I'm going to be doing uh, that. I plan on doing that away game trip again because it's a short proximity.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm actually planning on going to Philly this year too. Me and you should go together and maybe we'll do a show or something from there. Maybe a little bonus content.
Yep, we could definitely do that. Definitely, you could actually work that out. A nice little day game, nice little day trip.
Yeah,
Like little two trains there on the New Jersey Transit. Everything's right by there.
exactly. Not too bad. I mean, hey, I could even pick you up. We could drive. It's only a couple of hours drive, so we'll
Yeah, we could actually pick this up and drive. Grab it, head out there, grab a little cheesesteak before the game, and and attend the game, and maybe do a little show before the game.
exactly. Have a good time out there in Philly. They got a beautiful ballpark, so I always love going down there. And yeah, Dan, so I think that's just about gonna do it for us tonight. Um yeah, before we get out of here, do you have any thing that you like to plug?
Sure, you could follow me on Twitter, Bobo103NYC. Also, you could follow me on Instagram, Bobo718DK, and Daniel Kurlan on YouTube. There's definitely going to be some content on there on YouTube, especially over the course of the season as the different things happen during the course of the season, and including what I said, our potential away game trip in Philly that could happen this year.
No doubt
And
about it, man. We're gonna be doing a lot of that fun stuff.
yeah, yep, definitely, it's going to be a lot of fun stuff at the ballpark this year with us, and hopefully it'll be a lot of fun stuff there with the Rangers playoff run. So it should be great.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I feel like now we're about a month away from our year anniversary too. So we're getting close, we're just getting started. Everything's getting kicked up to the next gear here. And hey, just I really want to thank everybody for all the support and checking this out and subscribing to our content and viewing it and interacting with it. So thank you everybody for giving us your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you to everybody watching all over the world too, because I have gotten some messages from some viewers overseas watching this.
No doubt
So we got
about it. No doubt about it. We got some. Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
yeah, so we got people over the world, and I'm probably gonna make sure to stock up on some beer for that anniversary show.
Absolutely, man. That mark that down in your books. That will be a drinking show. We're gonna have a lot of fun on that one. I already have a couple of ideas in mind. We'll talk about that offline, and also too. By the way, we're gonna be having our Super Bowl special. At some point, we're gonna be filming some content before that. We'll probably be releasing it the weekend of the Super Bowl. So just keep your eyes peeled because we're gonna be having another special episode coming up, a little bonus content for the Super Bowl. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of special guests, and maybe we'll get the guy that we unfortunately missed out on tonight, Mike Bichetti. I do want to give him a couple of quick plugs because I know, he was planning on making it. So,
Go see him live. One of the greatest people I know, and he's a hilarious comic.
absolutely go see Mike live. Also follow him on Twitter. His at name is at Bichetti Mike. It's just his name backwards, Bichetti Mike. So feel free to follow him there. He's also got some big things in the work too, as Mike is heading out to LA soon to start filming for a show that's going to be on Adult Swim. So we wish Mike and his family nothing but the best, and hope to have him on soon. And if you'd like to follow me, you can check me out on Twitter at my last name Cramer NY. You can follow the show on Twitter at bsith_podcast, and you can check us out on Instagram at Best Seat in the House Podcast. Also, if you're not feeling the video or you can't watch it and you're in your car, feel free to check us out on any of your podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your stuff, Stitcher, any of these things, it'll be on Best Seat in the House podcast. So, hey, once again, thank you for all the support. And, hey, for Rob Cramer and Daniel Bobo Kurlan, thank you, everybody, for tuning in again this week, and we'll catch you next week on Best Seat in the House podcast.
Push the button, Frank.
What do you think, sirs?
Push the button, Frank.
Want some?
Push the button, Frank.
No, really, I insist.
Push the button.
Have one.
Push the button, Frank.
You're not getting enough to eat.
Push the button, Frank.
No, have some.
Push the button. Want some?
Yeah.
Push the button, Frank.